Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:06 now on this Tuesday morning. We're plowing through the news cycle for you and doing what we can to figure out who the next reality star is. It'll be named to the Treasury is still open. So I'm thinking one of the co-stars of The Apprentice.
Maybe.
Although they were all family members. So I'll give it to Don Jr. I'm kidding. We're mocking the media who reduces all of Trump's nominees down to, Fox News host or reality star. Obviously, they're an accomplished group of people, and we'll continue our analysis of them. Also coming up in 30 minutes, Silvie Rivera will give us her take on the Miss Universe pageant and a return to normalcy there. 7:05, Hans von Spakovsky on the shenanigans in Pennsylvania, and 8:05, Mark Morgan, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Talk about this story right now, which is the murder trial of Laken Riley. Julie Gunlock is here, and I am Larry O'Connor. Have you been tracking this murder trial? I find it hard to. Sometimes we have to stay on top of the news. It's our job.
Yeah.
But sometimes some days it's harder than others.
This is a brutal case,
It's
an absolutely brutal case. And
really hard to listen
some
to.
of the things that we've learned, for instance, that she was wearing a watch that tracked her heartbeat.
Yeah, it was like an Apple Watch thing.
Yeah, and the fact that it recorded exactly when her heart stopped beating is, and the video showing him dumping her clothing into a dumpster. There are several parts of this case that are just heartbreaking. Yeah,
and the fight, apparently, again, tracking the heart meter, 18 minutes as she was fighting back and trying to save her life against this alleged murder. Well, there is a murderer out there. Whether it is this person is still to be determined in a court of law, so you have to use these legal terms like alleged murderer, alleged assailant. The suspect in this trial, of course, is an illegal immigrant who has been in this country through our porous border, entered through Joe Biden's lack of border security, should have been deported multiple times and was just shuttled around in the system. And that brings us to yesterday's testimony from this suspect's roommate.
Someone else that you got to know that you lived with while you were here in Athens?
¿Alguien más que llegaste a conocer que vivió con ustedes aquí en Athens?
Giancarlo Hernández.
Giancarlos Hernández.
Okay. And how did you get to Athens?
¿Y cómo llegaron a Athens?
En Nueva York pedimos en Manhattan.
In New York, we asked in Manhattan.
En el Hotel Roosevelt.
And Hotel Roosevelt.
De Manhattan pedimos un vuelo humanitario aquí hasta acá, hasta Atlanta.
In Manhattan, we requested for a humanitarian flight to come here to Atlanta.
And when was that?
¿Y cuándo fue eso?
Como el de 9 a 10 de septiembre.
Around the 9th, 10th of September.
And where did you go when you arrived in Athens?
Y cuando llegó a Athens, ¿a dónde fue?
Al aeropuerto Airport.
To the airport. Al
aeropuerto.
All right, now through the translator, you're hearing the testimony of Rosbeli Flores Bello. This is a Venezuelan illegal immigrant who came here and ended up being the roommate of the suspect in this murder case. During that testimony, Flores Bello said that they requested a humanitarian flight. They were staying at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. They requested a humanitarian flight to come to Atlanta. So a taxpayer-funded flight set up from Kennedy International Airport to Atlanta was set up and paid for on September of 2023. Less than 6 months later, in February, is when Ibarra allegedly stalked, hunted down, and killed Laken Riley in Athens, Georgia. We paid for that. We paid for the hotel room. We paid for the upkeep. We paid for the food. We paid for the shelter.
What is a humanitarian
And then we paid for the flight. I have no idea. Why do you need humanitarian? I mean, you're in New York City.
Were his human rights violated at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York? What's going on?
Well, sometimes.
Because I'd like to visit my mom in Iowa. So where do I apply for one of these humanitarian flights?
Sometimes room service was slow.
Yes.
Food was cold when it got there. You need some humanitarian support.
His cell phone wasn't working. Free cell phone.
It's maddening enough that we're doing this and these are our policies. Then you find out, I'm guessing a one-way flight from Kennedy to Atlanta is probably about $200, maybe $250. How many of these are we paying for? just stick them on a Greyhound if you
Yeah.
really need to move them around. Or maybe if you can't afford to move around our country on your own, maybe you shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. government paid to fly this man to Atlanta where he bashed this young girl's head in with a rock and then asphyxiated her and sexually assaulted her. This is a government program set up to do this. And this guy had a rap sheet. It wasn't his first crime. And these people, how many have we imported into this country?
Well, and you'll remember this was obviously a big issue during the State of the Union address earlier this year when Marjorie Taylor Greene chanted back to Joe Biden, say her name.
Yeah.
Say her name.
And he got it wrong.
He got the name wrong, called her Lincoln Riley, number one, and then made the case that, yes, it was terrible that she died. But you know what? There's more murders perpetrated in this country by legal citizens.
Yeah. Do you know math? Yeah. I mean, of course, because there are more legal citizens, period, than illegals. But as a percentage.
Even as a percentage, it doesn't matter. It's a meaningless argument.
You're
It's
right.
a meaningless argument because if there's just one murder
right.
that takes place by someone who shouldn't be here and could have been prevented from being here, it's one too many.
Yes.
Well, on average, they commit fewer murders. Oh, well, I guess if you're using that logic, you should just get rid of all of the
And that
citizens
must be
in this country.
a real comfort to the
And
Riley
things
family.
Yeah, it really
Yes.
makes that family feel better. Last week during the trial, prosecutors said Riley fought for her life for 18. But by the way, there's only one cable channel who's showing this murder trial. Just
I
one.
wonder which one it is.
That would be Fox.
Yes.
During which he allegedly smashed her head with a rock and asphyxiated her when she attempted to fight him off in a sexual assault. Prosecutors showed the exact timing of the struggle using digital forensics on her phone and smartwatch, which tracked her heart rate, reaching a peak of 170 beats per minute and then dramatically dropping to zero. Flores Bello, the witness that you just heard speaking through a translator, was questioned about video footage that they showed identifying Ibarra throwing away a jacket in a dumpster that she had often seen him wearing. Prosecutors claimed that Riley's blood was on the jacket, and she agreed on the stand that it seemed strange that he would throw the jacket out in February. FBI agent testified on Monday that cell phone data showed Ibarra very close to Riley's cell phone at the time of the killing, because he's got a cell phone too. Who paid for that cell phone? 3 guesses. University of Georgia Police Corporal Rafael Sayan had been involved in questioning the Ibarra brothers and noticed the accused killer as having multiple cuts on his arms and wrists. Prosecutors who played a recording of a jail phone call between Ibarra and his wife, Layling Franco, repeatedly pressed him, what happened with the girl? What happened with the girl? Ibarra's defense attorneys continue to say that the evidence is just circumstantial, by the way. I love people say, it's just circumstantial evidence, as if circumstantial evidence in some way is not, enough to convict somebody. No, circumstantial evidence is 100% evidence to convict somebody. They're trying to say that, it's merely circumstantial. Just a data point for you. As of August, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has had a secret illegal alien flight program. It's paid for by U.S. taxpayers. 347,959 illegal immigrants have been flown into Texas and Florida so far. That's from the countries. Then once they're here, of course, apparently they're flown around
What's
wherever
interesting
they want.
about Texas and Florida?
Coming up at 8:05, we're going to speak with Mark Morgan, the former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection in the Trump administration, and hopefully he will have a role in the upcoming Trump administration about this policy and about how widespread it is. It's 6:15.
News is brought to you by Baird Financial.
As the Trump administration's policies begin to take shape through the selections of various members of the cabinet and other personnel, including Border Czar Tom Homan, the very public debate about the deportation of criminal illegal aliens has really gotten into full swing. It's very simple. The law states that criminal illegal aliens should be deported, and this administration has defied that law and ignored it. And in fact, if you suggest that that law should be enforced, you're, I guess, a racist. But my favorite argument is one that Jake Tapper made. I know he's your favorite journalist.
Oh, mine. Oh, absolutely.
In this town.
Please.
He's better than all of us. He's the only real serious journalist left.
Yes.
He made the case that you're hearing a lot, and you're going to hear quite a bit from Democrats here, basically making the case for the horrible plight of the price point of his kiwis and kumquats should we have to pay for actual citizens
Labor,
to
yes.
pick fruit
Yes.
instead of exploiting cheap labor. I wish I was joking, but here's Jake making the case for the plantation owners.
Start with you. Farm industry officials and economists tell CNN that if Trump indeed goes forward with this mass deportation plan and rounds up the millions of undocumented immigrants who are working in our agricultural sector, they say high grocery prices are only going to get higher. Obviously getting rid of people who have committed crimes beyond coming into the country illegally is one thing, but deporting people who are paying taxes, keeping the food and agriculture industries running, doing jobs that native-born Americans don't want to do or not willing to do, won't this actually hurt the Americans who are already so frustrated about high prices in grocery stores?
You go ahead first, because I got a lot.
Well, what I love about this is Tapper acts like that our country hasn't set up a system where there are temporary agricultural workers allowed into the country.
It's been
There's
this way
something
for
called the
decades.
H-2A program that allows U.S. employers or U.S. agents to meet specific regulatory requirements to bring foreign nationals to the United States to fill temporary agricultural jobs.
That's right.
This happens all the time in legal, in sort of farms that hire these people legally. They bring in these seasonal workers on these temporary visas, essentially these temporary passes. These people come in and then they go home when the season is over. So Tapper acts like the only source of agriculture help is through illegal immigration. It's not true. It's
That's
not
right.
true.
That is right. And I want to break this down because it's the perfect encapsulation of where the left has.
Yep.
By the way, I was about to say where they've arrived, but they've always been here.
Yes.
They lie about their positions every chance to take, but ultimately it does come down to this. There's two reasons why they want to continue to have a porous border. Number one, they want to exploit cheap labor. And number two, they want new voters.
And when you say what they want to exploit cheap labor, they want to exploit these people.
Yeah, it's human beings.
They want to exploit these human beings.
Start with you. Farm industry officials and economists tell CNN that if Trump indeed goes forward with this mass deportation plan.
Okay, so first he's citing big ag, whenever the left makes an argument, big corporations, and the top 1%, as Bernie Sanders would call them, the employers and the boss man, they're always supposed to be evil. They're wrong. They're always greedy. They're always selfish. They're the wrong end of the Marxist capitalist discussion. But when it's making a case for your virtue signaling immigration policies, then, they're the be-all. They're the end-all. They're the only source that we should listen to. Big agriculture, right? Isn't that ironic?
Yes,
all right,
it is.
but go ahead. Cite big ag and the corporations that you're carrying water for there, Jake.
And rounds up the millions of undocumented immigrants who are working in our agricultural sector. They say high grocery prices are only going to get higher.
Hey, Jake, how did those high grocery prices get high in the first place? It's funny. You can watch CNN during this entire last year's election and hardly notice any conversation about high grocery prices.
Yeah.
The thing that was plaguing moms and dads trying to keep food on the table when they went to get ground beef or eggs or cheese or milk. But now, that wasn't Joe Biden's fault. That wasn't Kamala Harris's fault. In fact, if you raise the issue, it was imaginary. You don't even know. Prices are down. What are you talking about? But now to make the case to keep exploiting cheap labor from foreign countries, well, high prices are just going to get higher, he says.
I just want to take one note of one thing that Tapper says, and he uses this phrase, big ag. We see that now. We see this big ag, big food, big pharma, big this.
Right.
Now it's big seed oil is the big trend, which I'm so tired of. Have you had your shot of seed oil this morning, Larry?
Every day.
It's
It keeps me going.
97% of U.S. farms are family owned. Okay, and family farms account for 90% of all farm production by value. Okay, family farms are not dead in the United States, and when you say big ag, there are families that own very large farms and partner with corporations. You might not like that.
Right.
You might not like modern ag. You might not like some of the agrochemicals and the technology that's used in agriculture, but most of these are family owned.
Yeah. Let's focus on this labor issue that Jake Tapper is harping on.
Obviously getting rid of people who have committed crimes beyond coming into the country illegally is one thing.
Oh, is it though? Oh, so I love this. So Jake, okay, so obviously we want to get rid of the people who are in this country illegally who have committed crimes. No,
Really?
actually,
Right, exactly. No.
that's not the current policy of this administration.
Right.
Okay. Well, yes, obviously nobody wants to keep criminals here. No, we're literally continuing. Go look at the Laken Riley case right now.
But deporting people who are paying taxes, keeping the food and agriculture.
Hey, when you pay taxes, Julie, do you have to use a social security number and a name and
do.
address and your identification?
Yep.
How are they doing that?
I don't know.
They don't have social security numbers. How are they paying taxes? Interesting. So they're also guilty of identity theft? Is
I
that
guess
what you're
so.
saying? And whose taxes are they paying exactly?
Industries running, doing jobs that native-born Americans don't want to do or not.
Doing jobs that first of all, again, as you argue, they don't have to be native-born Americans. We do have legal means. You know, we do a story. It's almost every year you do the story of these women who come from Latin America for 2 months a year at the Chesapeake Bay to pick the crab meat out of crabs. They're like the greatest at it for some reason.
There is a mechanism that we have done.
And they come here legally, and then they go back home. It's a guest worker program.
Yes.
And so native-born Americans won't do this.
And companies that don't want to go through that process, that's who uses. They take advantage and exploit and pay less for workers.
Native-born Americans won't do these jobs for the cheap prison wages
Right.
that you're encouraging being paid.
Yes.
By supporting this and criticizing.
Not willing to do, won't this actually hurt the Americans who are already so frustrated about high prices in grocery stores?
So they tried the racism and xenophobic arguments, and that obviously didn't work. They tried the, walls don't work, and if you're building walls, it means you're not embracing your neighbor, and we love everybody. That didn't work. Then the lie about whether they are criminals or not and whether they're even breaking the law, that didn't work. Every argument hasn't worked, so now here we are. We've arrived at the point where really this was really what it was all about anyway. We want to be able to exploit these people so that the hotels I stay in are kept cheap, so that my gardening is cheap, so that my nanny and babysitting is cheap, and so that Jake Tapper can get very expensive kiwis and kumquats on his fruit cup. That's where we are.
That's right.
And good. You know what? Good. Let's engage in this debate now. We're prepared. Jake, are you? It's 6:24.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's now 6:36 on this busy Tuesday morning. Coming up at 7:05, Hans von Spakovsky on the shenanigans in Pennsylvania. And also that discussion we had yesterday about the census and sort of reallocating those House districts and electoral college numbers. 8:05, Mark Morgan from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection during the Trump administration. Talk about Laken Riley and the plan to deport criminal illegal immigrants. We'll get to all of that coming up. That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Larry O'Connor, and it is a busy day, as every day is. But, of course, as you know here on O'Connor and Company, we know that life is not all about politics. Man does not live by elections alone. And we are absolutely transfixed, dare I say, borderline criminally obsessed with Miss Denmark, the newly crowned Miss Universe, because Silvie Rivera, our pageant correspondent and the Grand Dame of Real Housewives of WMAL, joins us now. Sylvie, this selection of Miss Universe, Miss Denmark winning Miss Universe, is a major departure from the trend it appears that pageants had been going in. Am I overstating the case there?
Oh, absolutely, Larry. Thank you, Larry and Julie, for having me this morning. Yes, Miss Denmark, as you said in the last hour, 21-year-old aspiring dancer and aspiring lawyer. Actually, she is a dancer. But believe it or not,
that's not as fun.
You know.
Sorry, Larry.
Believe it or not, she was the first runner-up of the Miss Denmark pageant back in the summer. But the winner of that crown withdrew a month ago because she felt she didn't have enough time to prepare. So Victoria replaced her and won the Miss Universe
and
pageant.
Then she won Miss Universe. And you said she's an aspiring lawyer. Do you have any information about her briefs?
Larry.
What?
Not at the time. But you know what? It was the first time, Larry and Julie, since 2004, 20 years ago, that a blonde has been crowned Miss Universe. The last one was Jennifer Hawkins from Australia. Wow. It was a beautiful pageant. It was held in Mexico City. 130 participants, which is the highest number that this pageant has had in its history. But wait a minute.
Does that include the men as well?
There were no trans contestants this year in the Miss Universe pageant.
The planet is healing.
The
planet is healing, Julie.
It's back to nature.
But on the night of the pageant, there were only 127 contestants. So you're wondering what happened to 3 contestants. Well, Miss Panama was disqualified. Miss Panama was disqualified from the competition after visiting her boyfriend's hotel room without permission. I mean, the scandal, right? And his hotel room was located on the other side of Mexico City, so she violated all sort of security guidelines that were set by the Miss Universe organization that they have to have permission and they have to have a chaperone.
Sylvie, that's a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, really,
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Now she alleges that she went to his hotel room to get her makeup done.
Sure.
But was disqualified anyway. And Miss South Africa and Miss Kosovo both withdrew last week due to health reasons. So that was unfortunate for those franchises. But aside from the fact that no trans contestants participated this year, there were 18 mothers participating and 13 married women, which since the organization lifted the no age limit in marital status 2 years ago, we've had more mothers and married women participating. But the shocking tidbit is that in the Miss South Korea pageant, the franchise of Miss South Korea, over the summer, an 80-year-old woman participated, representing a small town in the country. She did not win the Miss South Korea pageant, but she is the oldest contestant to participate in a Miss Universe franchise.
Sylvia, I can't tell you how much Larry has lost interest suddenly. Can we move on? Can we get back to the blonde, long leg? Yeah. Dancer.
I love 80.
It's fine, Larry. We're going back. It's fine. We're going back. Sylvie, I have a question. Is there a segment where they have to answer questions in this pageant?
Yes, there was the segment with the last 5 contestants that ended at the end.
Okay, so what were they political questions, and what were the answers like?
No, they were really not political at all this year. They were mostly about the environment and communities. But the final question was, Miss Universe has inspired generations of women, and what would you say to the women that are watching you right now? All top 5 contestants answered beautifully. I don't think that there was an issue with any of them. Denmark, her demeanor from the very start of the pageant was cool, was fun, very intelligent, always smiling, like she wanted to be there. She has one of these beautiful smiles, not fake. You could tell she's all natural Scandinavian beauty.
Yes.
And smart, for the first time in 14 years, Miss USA did not make it to the top 30. Now, this year they had 30 semifinalists. Normally they have 15. They upped it up to 30, and Miss USA did not make that cut, which was unfortunate. She's made it to the semifinals, every year for the past 14 years.
Right.
Now, social media was buzzing because, as you know, I have my devices all over the place.
Yes.
And, of course, Donald Trump was mentioned in many of the social media. Asians and Latin Americans mostly long for the days when Donald Trump ran the pageant and how majestic and phenomenal the entire production was. There was a woman from Argentina on X/Twitter that said, I get gastritis every time I hear the name of Trump mentioned, but let's face it, the man was spectacular running these sort of pageants. And that was the sentiment all over the world. So it was amazing.
Silvie, quickly, because you're so good at sort of delivering this information for us about the pageant, but shooting it through a broader cultural and even political sort of prism. I recognize that's the reaction from a lot of people. Do you read the tea leaves here about this selection and about the way the pageant was conducted as a big reversal from the trend it was going? Miss Universe has been purchased by this Thai media mogul who is a cross-dressing man who presents himself as a woman, and there seemed to be a real movement toward sort of the wokeification and the blurring of lines between the actual definition of a woman. Look at our own Miss Maryland here, which was a cross-dressing dude. So do you think this really is what we're all sort of thinking that it was?
There is no doubt that there is a shift worldwide as far as the wokeness situation. And, we saw throughout the pageant, there were no long woke, revolting segments on biodiversity or the environment or even DEI. And the pageant showcased real beauty and the wonders of Mexico because it was held in Mexico. And
Mexico
also,
City, yeah.
There is a co-owner of the pageant now who is a Mexican billionaire, and he co-owns the pageant with our friend from Thailand. So that brought in a lot of this, let's get rid of the wokeness because our ratings are down, et cetera, right?
Little testosterone.
Well, I am stunned by the winner of this pageant. She really, I mean, honestly, she is, it's hard. It's like staring at the sun. I can't, my eyes are burning looking at her beauty. Silvie,
now,
thank you.
Let me tell you guys, one thing that Telemundo is doing for next year's pageant is to create a reality show for people to participate in a mock pageant. And whoever wins that reality show will participate in next year's Miss Universe pageant. So guess who scanned the QR code on my TV to sign up for the reality show,
Silvie,
guys?
this would be fantastic.
Oh
we need you to do this.
We need you to do this.
And then even if you don't win, you're in line to be a cabinet secretary. So you'll be all set. Thank you, Silvie. Great talking with
guys.
you. Everybody go
Bye.
check out the Facebook group, Real Housewives of WMAL, but you have to ask permission to join, and not everybody's allowed in. It's 6:45. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes first on the 5s.
Looking at the sun.
It really, I mean, seriously, she's like goddess.
Down.
This woman is a goddess.
Oh, they keep talking about me.
Jamie Whitten.
On the next Vince Cogliane's show, the stories ripped from the headlines and translated into the truth. Join us 3 to 6 on WMAL.
Well, we have an update on some political posturing right now in the Commonwealth of Virginia as this election is behind us. We've got a new election coming up. And, you know, Winsome Sears announced that she was running for governor. And everyone was sort of holding their breath, waiting, well, let's see if she's going to be challenged.
Right.
And the most prominent potential challenger to Winsome Sears would be sort of her colleague, Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of Virginia.
And all of Virginia Republicans were like, oh, God, the parents are going to fight.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Don't
So
make
awkward.
me choose.
Don't make me
choose. Well, yesterday, your decision was made for you.
I'm Attorney General Jason Miyares. 3 years ago, I made one promise to the people of Virginia, to keep you and your family safe.
This is the video of Jason Miyares announcing his bid for re-election as Attorney General.
Virginia's murder rate is down 30%. I've taken on the big social media companies who try to get our kids addicted to their apps, and have worked to make our schools safer.
He immediately got the endorsement of Glenn Youngkin, who also endorsed Winsome Sears, and that suggests this is pretty much it.
That's it.
The only open seat that we're going to be looking at in a Republican primary of sorts will be for lieutenant governor, and you have not determined one way or the other whether you're going to throw your hat in the ring for that, Julie, or not? Is that
I'll make the announcement.
still in the
here.
decision-making process?
No, I will make the announcement that the answer is no.
Wait, hold out. Anyway, that's exciting. Jason Miyares, by the way, is going to join us on the show on Thursday. We'll talk about his record and launching into the next one. But this has the makings of a solid Republican majority in Virginia if we can build on the success of the last 4 years.
Youngkin, Winsome Sears, Jason Miyares, dream team, and it looks like it's going to continue. I'm very excited.
And Julie Gunlock is lieutenant governor. It's 6:53.
Making sense of your world.
Something you just don't hear anywhere else.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.